This time of year, the number one question that I hear people talking about all across social media is, how do you fish for bass in cold weather? Hi there, welcome to the Bass Fishing Life. I'm your host, Steve Rogers. Before we get into the video, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and punch the notification bell. We post videos 3 times a week on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at noon Central Time. And with that bell punched, you won't miss a thing, so thank you so much. Well, we all feel pretty good about going out in the spring, summer, and the fall, finding fish, catching them. You know, there's certain times of the year when, we're real lucky and it seems like we can throw anything we want and we're gonna get a bite. Well, winter fishing is not that way. It is very difficult. It stumps a lot of really great anglers, and there's gonna be days, nothing, where you're gonna get skunked or maybe only catch 1 or 2 fish. But that still doesn't mean we can't approach it in a way that really put the odds in our favor, and we can then have confidence that we know we are where those fish are located. So there are several real key things that I'm going to do and look for when I'm going to fish for winter bass. The first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to look for the absolute warmest water that I can find. In previous videos, in our winter jerkbait video, I talked about some of this same stuff, and that first thing that I talked about was focus on the north bank. As the earth, tilts back, and that sun is here and that earth tilts back, North America pulls away from the sunshine, which is why we have winter time. But those north banks are going to get more direct sunlight, more direct energy than any other bank on the lake, especially those banks on the south side. So I always start my search on the north bank right away, no matter what, for sure. The other thing that I'm going to take into consideration when I'm winter bass fishing are the tributaries. Now, if you're fishing a farm pond or a lake that doesn't have much water dumping into it, then you can't always use this particular situation. But if you're fishing a lake that has tributaries, if you're fishing a small river that's got streams coming into it, or a bigger river that has small rivers coming into it, this water coming in could be dynamite. So you need to take your boat, your graph, or if you're walking along the shoreline, bring a portable, thermometer with you and check those water temperatures. If I'm on the lake, and it is 45 degrees, let's say, the main temperature that I find, and I find a tributary, a stream or something, or even runoff coming into the lake, and it's, let's say, 48 degrees, 49 degrees, 50 degrees, holy cow, that is where I'm going to start. So if those tributaries coming in has got warmer water, that is a good thing. You're going to want to focus in and around that area where the water comes in and then the current pulls it down, or it flows downstream, down lake towards the dam or wherever it's going to be. If that water coming in is colder, see ya. Adios. That is not where you want to be. So tributaries and water coming into a lake in the wintertime, if that water coming in is warmer, you're good. If the water coming in is cooler, get away from it. So north bank, check those tributaries if you have them. The next thing that I'm going to look for on that north bank is rock. Rock retains heat. If you've ever gone up to a brick house in the evening, or even several hours into the nighttime in the summertime, you put your hand up to that brick house, it's radiating warmth, even though it could be 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, completely pitch black out. Rocks in the water do the same thing. They hold that energy and then release it back out, radiate that warmth back out. If you can find rocks on the north bank, that is awesome. That is so good. The next one is vegetation. Vegetation retains heat as well, can release heat, and depending on the type of vegetation, where you're at, some of that vegetation is going to be dying off. In the middle of the winter where part of the lake has got ice on it, but I'm still fishing open water, I throw some baits out there, I will still pull up bright green, luscious, live vegetation in different bodies of water. If you can find vegetation on the north bank, that is a good thing. With rock and vegetation, that is a good thing. Rock vegetation, warm water coming in from a tributary. Now you're really starting to narrow things down of where I would begin. So all of those are key factors to look for. The next one is not always easy depending on the clarity of the water, but keep an eye out for life. If you can find any sort of life on that lake or on that river, that is a good thing. And by life, I just don't mean if you see bait fish or bluegills or shad, whatever, in the water. Look at the birds as well, especially on river systems. They are really good at identifying where there is life. So where you see birds in the wintertime, whether it's eagles or other types of scavengers, whatever, they're really good at locating where there is life. So use them to your advantage. All of those things are going to help you narrow down and locate bass in the wintertime. The last one I want to talk about has basically the same thing to do with the tributaries coming in, but that's muddy water. Now we know that cold, muddy water is a nightmare. That's probably the number one thing that most bass anglers avoid is cold, muddy water. But like I mentioned earlier with the tributaries, if that muddy water dumping in is warmer, don't be afraid of it. And the fact that it's muddy and it's warmer, those fish could pull up really, really shallow. Look for muddy water if it's warmer. If it's colder, muddy water, stay far, far away from it. And the last thing that goes with that, if you're fishing a reservoir system that has a lot of tributaries and creek arms coming into it, often in mid to late winter and into the springtime, there's going to be big amounts of muddy water come in from runoff and rain, snowmelt, that type of stuff. If your reservoir is big enough, it takes several days for that water to push through and get all the way down towards the dam and then spill out and continue on its way. Look for the clean water, the clear water, on the other side of it. Okay, let me give you a perfect example. I was fishing a tournament on Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia, and there had been a ton of rain. And the part of the lake I was checking one day in practice, I was just going up this creek arm and all of a sudden I had to pull down and slow down to an idle because there was a massive mass of dirty, muddy water, debris, and garbage floating in the reservoir. Well, a lot of guys were getting to that and turning around. I actually slowly idled through it. Okay, worked my way around floating logs and debris and all kinds of stuff. And this patch of muddy water was probably about 600 or 700 yards wide or yards long. It was you couldn't really see across it. But I finally got to the other side of it and the water was crystal clear. And that is where I fished on tournament days and actually cashed a check at that event up in that crystal clear water. But it had poured down rain, and then it had stopped for a couple days, and that big mass of mud had a chance to move. So if in the wintertime you have that situation, make sure to check on the other side of it if you can get to it safely, and look for that clearer water. Well, I hope that some of these tips are going to help you in your wintertime bass fishing. If you have questions, comments, some things you want to share from your own experience, go ahead and drop them down below, and I try to respond to everybody. Hey, don't forget to go out and encourage someone today. You never know what a difference you're going to make in their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.